Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining in. It's an honor to have President Mbeki in the hall. Thank you, sir, for being in this session. We really appreciate your support and your advice. So how many of us over here, this is going to be a session, everybody here is a performer, is an artist, a creator. But let me ask, how many of you love movies? Oh, what a surprise. Right? And how many of you are on Instagram? Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a consumer economy. And how many of you have made reels? Uh-oh. Only one hand. Oh, the handsome gentleman over there, who we know that has been attracting a lot of attention. So the thing is that today, when we talk about creator economy, it is a combination of the legacy media houses, from movies to television, to now individuals who are creating on their own, with or without platform. So I think the real issue today is that how does that translate into empowerment for people, for the creators, for the consumers, and there's so many dimensions of it. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to request all of them to quickly answer. I mean, the objective of this session is to answer and address one question. How do you ensure that creators, and all of us can be creators, billions of people can be creators today, how do you ensure that they monetize what they do and they have control over the content that they create? And that has several other dimensions, but I'm going to request all of them to give me a quick introduction about the fantastic work they've done, but also address this question. Lindiwe, over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to ORF and the Thabo Mbeki Foundation for having me. And good afternoon, Mr. President. So I'm Lindiwe Matladi. I am the founder and CEO of Africa Teen Gigs. I always say I've got two jobs, one that pays my bills and one that feeds my soul. So I've got Epoditis, which is a company, and Swerfalk, which is a counter-drone company, and those that pays my bills, and Africa Teen Gigs is a non-profit. Where we started as an organization that was teaching kids how to code, and we were the organization that actually put together the coding curriculum for the South African government. We raised the funding for it. So we raised the funding for it and brought people together, and we actually were the one who made sure that it became policy. And also as a side hustle, I wouldn't say a side hustle, something that I do.
You have many hustles. Right?
I do, yeah. I love singing, so it's been something I write.
So if the audience is nice, we have two singers on the stage. I won't tell you who they are, but they might just play a song for you.
Yeah. So that has been something that I do as a way of therapy. If anybody who have started a company, a startup, it's hard, it's lonely. So it's been one thing that I've done where I will write music, and then I just recently released my music. You can find it on all the digital platforms under Lindiwe Matladi. And on YouTube, within a month, we have over 700,000 views. So that was amazing, given that, I haven't had time to do any promotion or PR. My first interview is on Friday to promote the album. But that has been amazing, just getting the support from just the community on social media who went. So now I want to talk about the story of, the creators in Africa. I always say the story of the Global South is a story of brilliance exported and value lost. Whether it's music, fashion, gaming, or digital storytelling, our creators are shaping global culture at a scale the world can no longer ignore. Afrobeats is everywhere. Amapiano is everywhere. Nollywood sells more tickets than Hollywood. Our fashion influences runways in Paris. Our memes and dances drive global engagement. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The world consumes our creativity, but it does not reward our creators. The Global South is not short of creativity. We are short of ownership. Our music drives global playlists, our fashion drives global runways, our stories drive global streaming numbers. The world is building billion-dollar industry of our culture, while our creators hustle for visibility and fight for scraps. We are not lacking talent, we are leaking value. For too long, we've been positioned as cultural exporters, while the revenue, the algorithms, the platforms, and the power sits somewhere else. Someone else owns the data, someone else owns the IP, someone else sets the rules. We create the culture, and someone else cashes the check. So today, I'm not here to celebrate creativity. I'm here to argue for economic justice. If developing countries want to win, we need to move from being the heart of global culture to being the headquarters of its monetization. That means owning the IP, funding our creators, building our platforms, training our digital workforce, and rewriting policy to treat creativity as an industry, not an afterthought. Because the creator economy is not just entertainment. It is infrastructure, it is jobs, it is a national soft power, it is a GDP. Every young creator is a business. Every business creates a value chain, and every value chain can transform a nation if we build a system that keeps the value at home. The world already dances to our sound, wears our style, copies our memes, and borrows our innovations. Let's make sure they also pay for it, fairly, transparently, and equitably. The global South doesn't need to fight for relevance. We are the relevance. Now it's time to build the platforms, the policies, and the capital pipelines so our creators can earn globally, scale globally, and own globally. We've shaped the culture. Now let's claim the wealth. Our creators have always been global. Now our economies must catch up. If the world profits from our creativity, then our nations must prosper from it too. We gave the world the soundtrack, and as somebody who just released the music, now we are taking back the master rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think a huge round of applause to you. You know, I would vote for you if you stand for elections. And I think the entire creators, all of us creators, consumers would definitely do that.
I would only run if President Peggy would be my deputy president.
That's a good one. But, you know, let me now request Asha to share. I think you did a great framing. You did a better job than me in terms of telling us what the challenges are. But I also want to come to solutions from all of you. But Asha, you're a cadet and a singer and an actor and an entrepreneur. And I've lost track of the other things that you do. But quickly, tell us your thoughts on Lindvi also lays some of these points, but your thoughts on this issue and a little bit about what you do.
Namaste and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, RF, Mr. President, and Tabu Miki Foundation for giving me this opportunity to be a part of CTC, elated to be in the panel amongst everyone. I know first session after lunch, let's all be a little excited.
We're going to make you sing.
Okay. So my creative journey started 10 years ago when I became Miss India in the year 2014. And from the pageant, I moved to films, started with my first Bollywood film. And then I'm predominantly now doing South Indian movies in the languages Kannada and Telugu. And while I was in this creative field, I also wanted to build a community for like-minded people and for creators to come together offline, which is why I started my startup called The High Table. Derived from the movie John Wick. Do we have any fans in here? John Wick? You know the high table. The elder sits at the high table, so we derived the name from that.
It's okay. If you don't like John Wick, it's okay. She's going to excuse you for it.
We have a background story for John Wick as South Africans.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me, the 10-year creative. Being in the creative industry, I understand the emotional and economic aspects of being a creator. And the funny thing is, Global South actually determines a lot of global culture, be it our movie, Nollywood, Bollywood, music, food, humor, digital trends that we have. But I personally believe that we don't get the value that we actually create. So I'll give you an example, because I've been told if you actually state a problem, you come up with a solution.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Giving an example.
That was the moderator's rule, so she's following that.
So let me tell you by giving an example. So today, I'll talk about India in particular. If I'm a creator, I have a client, I have an agency, and I'm a creator. Today, if the client is giving me a job, the agency definitely has a cut, right? The standard industry pricing may be 15%. The elite pricing may be 18%. I mean, like, you would know. When does the creator actually get the money? There is no direct pipeline. And the bandwidth is 90 days. You may get your money, you may not get your money. If the client is stalling something, then the agency stalls it, and you don't get anything in your pocket, and there's no regulatory framework to protect you and your IP and your rights. So that is actually a concerning thing for all the creators, because today everybody is a creator. If you look at it, agency or no agency, you have a phone, you have your Instagram, you're on social media, you can go ahead and create it. But it's not been protected. B, I would like to say digital literacy. Today, if somebody is sitting in a rural area, they're amazing singers or dancers or actors. They want to make a reel, they'll put it on YouTube. But are they making sure that they're being valued? In terms of if you put up a reel or, you know, a short video on YouTube, do you know how much you're going to get paid for that particular amount of reels?
Are you saying that there are many people out there in various countries who've created very popular videos, but have no idea how to monetize them?
Yes, me.
I thought you made a lot of money.
No, but see, this is something that I'll say personally. When I started off in the industry and YouTube creator thing was very new, I was posting videos and I was getting like 50,000, 70,000 views. But I didn't know like what's the money I'm supposed to have in my bank account. What am I going to get? There's no framework for that.
I think that's a great point, Asha. We'll come to that. The point is that in the creator economy, one of the challenges which you also raised, how do you ensure that a lot of the young people and different communities coming on board in the digital mainstream know how to value their work and get the value in their bank account? I think that's where we need a new structure, and maybe influencers like all of you have a role as well.
I just want to say that there's no shortage of talent in Global South. We just need to be smart about value capture.
That's a great point.
Thank you.
Bolanle, over to you. You, I think, are jet setting between Lagos and Los Angeles, and I can imagine that Lagos is better.
Yes, it is actually. It is. I go to LA for hiking and Lagos for turn up. If you don't know, Lagos in December is absolutely amazing. It's like Ibiza, but on steroids. So I invite you all to come this December.
I think Lagos is real people, right?
Yes.
Go ahead.
But thank you so much for having me. A little bit about myself. I've worked in the media space for quite a bit now. I started off on Ebony Live TV and then transitioned to start producing. And I'm really excited about this conversation because the creative economy, for me, I don't see it as soft power. I think our creative economy is hard power. I think that it has the ability to completely transform the global south, specifically speaking for Nigeria. We've seen Hollywood use the creative sector to completely control the world. I moved to America when I was 16 and I thought that I was gonna bump into a cute guy in high school because that's what I watched on television. I thought that the streets were paved with gold because America has used their movies to completely convince us of who they are and who they're not. And I think that we can do that here. And when you're thinking about the creative economy, I want to give you guys a little bit of facts, specifically for Nigeria. Now, Nigeria in 2024, we were able to make $7.5 billion from our creative sector. And by 2030, we're going to possibly make $15 billion. But it's not going to be possible if we don't have infrastructure. Right now, what we're seeing in Nigeria is we're seeing a lot of ad hoc, one-offs, influencers using their phones to be able to generate content and all of that. We have 53% of Nigerian youth as of 2022 were unemployed, and it's going to increase. And I have seen the creative sector completely transform and change our community. So I think for me, my main focus is how do we get support to build this infrastructure? Gone are the days where everyone was going to say that they were going to be a doctor, a lawyer. I grew up in a time where, if you were going to be a doctor, if you're going to be a singer, your parents would say, hey, there's something wrong with you, and send you for prayer and fasting because they were like, what's wrong with you? But now you have people saying that they want to be actors, they want to be directors. And that's because there's potential and there's money in it. So the question is, how do we get the support of agencies and different organizations to back us financially with infrastructure? I'm currently working on my first television series, and it's funded by the Gates Foundation. Now, if it wasn't funded by the Gates Foundation, I'd be in a lot of debt, and I'd be very, very nervous about how I was going to make that money back immediately because of a lot of the loan structures that we currently have. They are 1 year, there's 6 months, some of them, and they ask for collateral. How many creators have collateral to drop? You're 27, you don't have a house to drop as collateral. So these are a lot of the conversations as we're talking about the creative economy that we need to be asking. We're saying, oh, we want people to be more creative, but we have to think about the demographic of the people who are in that economy. We need more properly structured opportunities for funding so that the truth of what we see in the creative economy will actually come to fruition. And I think it's possible. I just think a lot of the language and a lot of the big, mighty, ideas, we need to break it down and really ask ourselves, like you said, Titi, who lives in a small town in a village, has a cell phone, has internet. How is Titi going to understand all these different policies? We need to break it down for her.
I think that's a great rule. That's a great point. But for your television series, there's a lot of talent here. So if anybody wants to audition, please let her know.
Let me know.
We can pick up a lot of talent from here. But that's the interesting part, that today I think there is a level of democratization, an egalitarian approach where you can be a creator. There are challenges in terms of getting the right money, the revenue models. But I can give you the India example. So for example, in India, there are about 20 to 30 OTT platforms like Netflix, which compete with Netflix and Prime Video in local languages, in regional languages. So in some ways, it has ensured that non-English voices get the platform that they deserve. And a lot of them are local entrepreneurs who have created that. And I'm sure, Asha, you've seen some of that. So there is a very interesting movement globally on providing platforms which are not necessarily created outside their country. But Gavin, I'm going to come to you because you also have a fantastic and a very, very impressive career. And when we were chatting earlier, he told me about 20 new forms of content which we can create. Of course, podcasts we know, reels we know. But Gavin, give us a quick update from you in terms of your views on the challenges, but also the new forms of content which are appearing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Pranjal. And thanks. It's lovely to be here. And thank you so much, Mr. President, for attending. So my career, I suppose, mirrors the rise and fall and rise and fall and fall and fall of the modern media industry. So I began life about 500 meters up the road at independent newspapers, working for the Daily Voice, which was a tabloid newspaper. It was just an inky daily paper. I moved to England. I went to work for a weekly magazine, the New Musical Express, and then that sort of faded out. It began to decline in sales as sort of digital took over, and so I jumped into Vice Media, which was a sort of a brand new sort of new media first thing, and that was online only, and for a while it was the biggest thing in the world. It was $1 billion company, and to cut to the end of that story, Vice is now valued at precisely $0. The whole thing
that's
collapsed.
A great point. Let me interrupt you here, because that's also a great point which we often forget, that platforms have shorter lives.
Yes.
So you can be a meteor, you can shine everywhere, but you can collapse as easily as well. What are the learnings from that?
Everything is paper valuations, and everyone is looking for the new thing. And we live in this sort of starburst panoply now of platforms. And, I did video for Vice in sort of 2015 era, when that was like the pivot to video was the big thing in media. And then it turned out Facebook had sort of slightly juiced the algorithm, and actually that wasn't true. They weren't getting the eyeballs that they thought. So that whole industry collapsed overnight. About 2017, 2018, I decided to get into podcasting. Audio was the new thing. So I made a few documentaries for the BBC Radio, and then went to work for a company called Novel, who, was one man in his basement in like 2020 when I joined. And by the end, we had sort of 45 employees and like big, impressive American hires, and narrative long-form podcasting was meant to be the future. And then that, to cut another long story short, the company halved in size pretty much overnight, as that basically interest rates climbed up, and all that speculative money that had sort of followed what they thought was going to be the next big thing again drained away, because ultimately the model didn't have an underlying revenue stream. So to skip slightly forward, I now work for a think tank and I do various sort of media things for them. But another thing I do in my spare time, I suppose, is an independent podcast called Multipolarity, which is about geopolitics, basically. It's two very talented economists, thinkers, and I produced that. And we have independently funded that through Patreon. So basically, we sort of did it 6 months for free and then started to gate certain episodes. And we've built that up to about $3,500 a month of revenue coming in.
So, Gavin, what you're saying is that two things. One, content form is going to keep evolving and changing, and those who do not are going to fail. But more importantly, the revenue models need to evolve too, right? So some of the voices we heard and the thoughts we heard is that we are not getting paid, there are agencies and middlemen taking away money. It also means that we need to find new ways for creators to make money. And any of you, please jump in on this thought, but a quick take from you.
Yes, well, I think creators, I mean, ultimately what we've got down to with Multipolarity is the ultimate model where it's personality driven and information led. These two people have proprietary information and they have literal fans who follow them on Twitter, etc. And all of that is funneling towards the podcast, which you mainly give away, but then there's a certain amount of gated exclusive content. And that's the kind of nub, you kind of go from big newspapers, which are speaking to a broad mass market to like, okay.
Newspapers, what is that?
Well, precisely.
What is a newspaper? I don't know how many people actually get. I mean, this hotel, I asked for a newspaper. I said somebody was scratching their head in the front office saying, is there a newspaper around in the hotel?
Yeah.
So you're talking about a very ancient form of communication.
And newspapers don't really have sub-editors anymore. I mean, your online world, they just abolished the art of sub-editing. I'm sure you remember sub-editors, yeah.
Sure. So please come in.
I want to jump in a little bit about the part about, income and whether creators are remunerated fairly. For example, like in Nigeria, I believe there was a period where TikTok wasn't paying its creators in Nigeria. A lot of the remuneration, pipelines you see, they only work for people who live in the US and in the UK.
Yep.
I don't know, are South African creators, TikTok, Instagram, are you guys, anybody know? They're paid here. So,
So who all have created on TikTok?
Directly from TikTok.
But unfortunately,
I don't think TikTok directly pays outside of the US. Yes. Okay. So, for example, you have millions and thousands of us on these platforms and they're not paying, but we're spending so much time. So we only make money from a ad or a brand who comes on our pages and they're able to, give us income. And I've worked as an influencer that's one of my side gigs for many years. So I've made good money from influencing, but I've not made good money from influencing from Meta or from TikTok. It's when I'm in America, because my backend has a lot of American followers, that I actually make income from there. Now, a lot of the challenges actually has to do with our government policies. There's sometimes a bit of a war between, these companies and our governments where, a lot of times the government has created policies to protect the creators, and companies like Meta and TikTok, they might not be as fair towards the creators. So the main way we make money, like he said, is Patreon. It's having your own personal merchandising that allows you to take power back.
That's a great idea. So you're also advising creators now to go beyond the platforms to create products which they can monetize.
It's only YouTube that's kind of fair, to be honest.
So are we talking about Bolanle dolls or something like that?
Yeah. I also have a weight loss book.
So you'll have Gavin dolls and Bolanle dolls and Asha dolls, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But what I wanted to add on what you're saying is that, the issue of policy, it comes back to what I call tech exploitation. Is that, and I think it goes back to what our government, a lot of African government, including ours, from the point of where we pushing too much or saying, our economy needs foreign direct investment. While I don't have an issue with foreign direct investment because, we do need investment, but the problem is that that comes at, for example, what you see Microsoft or Meta doing in the US. When they come here, they basically get free reign. Because they will be like, if you don't let us do this, if you come up with this, let's talk about the copyright law that has been sitting with our president for years, has not been signed. The reason for that, we know that a lot of these big companies have been like, okay, if you sign this, then we're gonna disinvest. But the problem is we know, anybody who studied basic economics know that any country can never pivot from poverty to being a big economy if it doesn't build from within. So you look from the United States to South Korea, we know that they grew because of Samsung, right? So if we're not going to prosper if we keep thinking that our savior is going to come from outside. So our policies has to be balanced in a way. How do we protect our culture? How do we protect our people? How do we make sure that everybody makes money from us, but we're not getting anything? I always say.
So are you saying, Lindewe, that you need to have, for example, South African media platforms which will be far more fair to you than the global Western platforms?
Yes, but also we need to make sure that the policy from government make sure that it protects our local industries. And also it can't be the focus that, we need, like this global companies are going to come to save us. We know that they are not. Because at the end of the day, if we don't build from within, if we don't make sure that our people are because we know every time we talk about investment, we know everybody talk about, Africa is the next frontier. But one thing I've seen and I've observed, everybody wants to make money from Africa. They want to invest in Africa, but not in Africans. And that's a fact. And that is something that we need to make from a policy-making perspective. How do you make sure that if you're going to say you're going to invest in Africa, you must also invest in Africans? It can't be continuing to what has been happening
That's
from the
a very,
mining sector.
very strong
where,
point.
Resources are being extracted, but we get nothing. And it's the same thing with our culture.
But I'll tell you.
Before I go, I want to make one thing
sure.
first, because
Yeah.
it also shows from the issue of government failure, talking from our South African government failure. If I will come back from the issue of Bafana, remember that Bafana, there was an issue of a trademark because some John Doe somewhere decided to trademark Bafana because our government hadn't. Now, let me go back to our national party, our ruling party, right? Umkhonto weSizwe. We know it's our Umkhonto weSizwe, it's our like a struggle that, we know who they are. But then now, why are we in court fighting from somebody else using what is, we know it's a national thing. So the point is, if we can't even protect that, then we are not protected ourselves.
So that's a good point. I think people stealing IP is a global issue. We've seen that across cultures. But Asha, I want you to come in.
I just wanted to add something to that. We're using very heavy words here, right? Creator, economy, things like that. And we obviously have a lot of solutions and problems. But I think it should start with recognition. Okay. Recognize it as a real deal. We still have a lot of it's an untapped potential for any country, especially Global South. Once we recognize it as a real deal, then be it the legal framework, data protection, digital literacy, everything will fall in place, and I think we can go about it. It's not just enough to talk about it on platforms like CTC and other platforms. These are like absolutely niche, and today we are privileged enough to sit here and to be talking about creator economy and things like that. But what's happening on the grassroots level, we have to bring them up so that we realize that we're contributing to the country's economy. That's it.
Great.
Thank you.
Questions from all of you. We have about 10, 12 minutes left. Can you come to mics on both sides of the hall, introduce yourself, and keep the question crisp so that we can come back to the panel for more.
Okay, thank you. My name is Baratang Mia. I'm from Gelhype, Women Who Code. My comment is a question comment, but
you'll have to be a little bit louder, please.
Okay, my comment or question is, to be on social media or any other platform that's a creator economy. The big creators, let's focus on the little ones. If I were to post something on Facebook, I want to make money on Facebook, I have to spend money. And how Facebook monetize people, they will say, you have to spend 5,000 Rand firstly on advertising before you get considered to be a creator. Now, how do we expect, like you mentioned, they don't pay people in Africa. The requirement is you have to spend 5,000 USD for Facebook to start paying you, or Instagram to Meta. And then when you go to TikTok, there's also a requirement. And those baselines are just to keep creators in a bubble.
That's a good point.
How do we incentivize and make sure that the industry, when they take African creators, they take like 10 out of the whole continent of 54 countries. And I think people who are sitting there as people who are championing this, this is the economy that's like with billions. You need to start, it's sending messages to our young people. We need to change the statement to say, if you're going to take money, 5,000 USD from someone young, you need to be incentivizing the continent.
Got it. That's a good point. So I'll come to the panel. Any other question from the audience? Right. Looks like there are not too many creators over there, only consumers in the audience. So I can get that. But as consumers, if you have demands of them on what to create, please feel free to share that. But I think the point was raised is very important, that while at a level we feel that because of social media, digital media and broadband access, it's really open for everybody to enter, it's really not. So what we're saying, there is an entry barrier. So Bolanle, do you want to come in on this?
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about this. I think I've been influencing for about 10 years in addition to what I do with producing. And I've done a lot of influencing and I've done a lot of brand trips and done a lot of travels with that. And it's completely different, the market here versus the market in America. Influencers in America and in the UK, they make astronomical money. It's insane. I mean, with my numbers on Instagram, an influencer in America charges about $10,000 to $15,000 for one post. I have friends who do this. Whereas in Nigeria, what I charge is a fraction of the price for one post. It's good money, but it's a fraction of the price. And what she's saying is true in that the back end, the only reason why I monetize on any of these platforms is because a lot of my back end is tied to American addresses and different things like that. And I think that they just still have not seen the value here. At the end of the day, these platforms are a business. So the RPM, which is pretty much when you post something on YouTube and you're making money from the ads that play during your videos, because of YouTube charges advertising companies, they charge businesses less than what they charge in America. That means that the RPM is lower in continents on the continents. So for example, if someone is gonna watch your video and they're watching your video in America, they're gonna charge them maybe 12 cents per video. Whereas in Nigeria, they'll charge them 1 cent per video because the business model for them is not as high. So I think what we have to realize at the end of the day, even though these spaces, they seem like they're free, they're fun, they're businesses. Meta is notorious for this. Meta is one of the hardest. Once you start paying for ads on Meta, just know that your videos will never do well because they want to make sure that you continue to pay.
So sometimes you have to pay to be visible.
Yes, especially
it's not
for
really.
Meta. TikTok is a bit different. They're a bit more, they want you to go viral, and I think the Chinese have a different model. But at the end of the day, the truth about it is I still lean towards these platforms. I've seen these platforms transform people's lives, even in Nigeria. I've seen these platforms create jobs for people, even in places where, there's not opportunities. So it's kind of like a push and, they know they have more power. They know that they add more value than they don't add more value. I think it just means that we have to have government policies that favor the creators a bit more. But again, even our governments, there's also incentives to let them be in the market and play the way they play. I think it really is just about always remembering that those platforms do not belong to any of us. At any given moment, they can take your page down and that's it. You must have your own intellectual property off of those platforms, your own website, your own email list, your own, having Patreon. Those things allow you to have autonomy. And I think that that's part of the literacy that we need to teach creators. I have friends who've had pages for 10 years, and one day Instagram said, your page is a violation. That's 10 years of your work gone. It's so difficult to build your following back up.
So Gavin, what's the answer to this? How do you take on these platforms? I mean, is there a model to explore? Do you see alternate options coming up?
Alternate options. I'm not sure there are. I mean, the problem is network effects. I mean, we live in a world where, for historical reasons, these platforms have come to dominate. There are certain exceptions. I mean, Russia has a thing called VKontakte, which is effectively a Facebook clone. It was just designed by one guy in like 2007. And that dominates the Russian social media space. And it has its advantages and it has its disadvantages. Russia sort of like disconnected itself from that greater global game. I mean, I guess just on the point of what is just returns and, how can the developing world get more out of this? Well, it's one interesting thing that happened over the last sort of 48 hours is that Twitter has released the geolocations of every single user. And there's been a bit of a scandal, I suppose, in that a lot of users who were posting content that was sort of, I don't know, flag waving, kind of, pro-Trump stuff, or things that are sort of about sort of classical architecture and sort of very kind of right-coded things, I suppose, have been found to be in India, Pakistan, Indonesia, and sort of masquerading as part of the West and the West as a social movement.
Actually,
And I guess so why
even
why
in
is
India,
that?
a lot of the people criticizing India and our policies were found to be outside India, and
Yes.
that's
yes.
a very interesting point that you raised.
But I think the point there, to me, is in part that these were users who found the opportunity to make sufficient ad revenue from the site itself because they were based in developing
And
countries.
these paid trolls, I mean, that's also a creator economy, right? Paid trolls, people are paid to troll you.
Yeah.
Isn't that creator economy too?
Well, I suppose so. Yeah, if you're a creative troll, I'm sure, I've met some creative trolls. But, so there is downside for developing countries in that the rates are not as high because their economies are not as fluid, but also if you can triage if you can sort of arbitrage into the first world, you can kind of do the same thing that, the West and China did in the early 2000s with the industrial economy. It's just the information economy, and indeed India with the call center and service economy.
Quickly, so Lindy, you, and then we'll have a couple of closing comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what I said earlier, the importance of building from within, and the fact that if the only way that we can be able to also address a lot of the challenges that the influencers, because I'm not an influencer, I do other things, but but the point is that the only way we can deal with these unfair policies that happen for a lot of us in the global south is if we build from within. In China, now Facebook is not doing that in China. Because China has built their own platforms, they're competitive and they're making sure, I mean, if you hear...
So why can't South Africa or Nigeria create its own platforms?
It's purely, as I said, the fact that our policies are misguided in terms of this whole
But
thing
it's
of
not about the
foreign
government.
direct
But anyway, this is
investment.
about entrepreneurship. It's not about the government.
It is, but then, okay, it is about entrepreneurship. Okay, let's talk about this. Do you know how hard it is to raise money in this country? I'm an entrepreneur. Government have CEDA and all of these things. Try and go and apply for money. I sit on the board of TIA. Sometimes it will take up to a year to get your funding. Your idea, if you are in technology, by the time you get the money, everybody has already done that. I mean, in technology, it's about first mover advantage.
Okay.
So there's a lot of that crap that is also happening.
Anyway, quickly, Asha and then Bolanle.
I mean, to me, reshoring creator economy just means flipping the script. Let the value stay closer to where the creativity has originated.
No, but why can't you create local platforms? Why do you have to depend on Meta and the Instagrams of the world?
No, nobody's saying we can't create it. Let that be a step in the direction. I'm not saying don't create it. But people who have actually tried to do that also didn't get a lot of regional support because we do have dependency on these platforms like Meta and stuff like that because we need, let's be real, we need performance marketing for movies, we need performance marketing for startups, we basically need ads for everything for even people to recognize us.
And we don't have venture capital that works. I still have to go to the US to find money, and they will not fund me because I'll be competing against them.
So anybody with a big wallet, please contact her right now. Alanle.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, again, it's possible. The solution creating our own platforms? When you think about China has their own platforms because of censoring. It's not a business reason. They do it because they want to make sure that their people, their citizens are censored. So they're not interested in their citizens joining global platforms. Now, again, she's saying, if I go to a VC and I say I want to create a Facebook version for Nigeria, they'll say, why? What problem does that solve? The solution really comes down to pumping more funding into the creative sector's infrastructure. That's where we need to go back to the drawing board and giving creators the opportunity to be able to do that. Creators know how to make content. And when I say content, I don't mean like just videos. I mean movies. I mean musicians, artists. There's so much potential. And the great thing about it is it opens more opportunities for employment. I think it's a major solution. It's the new version of manufacturing. That's what it is.
That's a great point.
So
That's a great point.
We need to move forward and we need to look forward and we need financial support.
I think
Also,
we
all
have
the companies
okay.
that get VC funding in Africa are not registered here. They're registered in Delaware.
But Lindy,
so it's
you
like Andela has money. They raised 500 million. They're in they are in Nigeria. They are not. They are in Delaware. So, Mr. President, we need you to fix this for us. We don't have to go to the US for us to to register outside of the country for us to get the support that we need.
And please vote for Lindy. But thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm ending here. I'm ending here for a fantastic panel. We still didn't have the songs. But one point, all of us are used to consuming free content. Please pay for your content. That is the best way to ensure you have vibrant creator economy. Thank you very much. Please join me in thanking the panelists.